order. And with that, I think we need to do it's like attendance or roll call. And Dale, can I ask your assistance with that?
Absolutely. Varnika Doka.
Here.
Shani Kapoor. Oh,
You're
yep,
muted,
just
but
an
I saw a
unmute.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Ray Manahan.
Here.
Leslie Millender Irwin.
Present.
Preeti Modi Pan.
Here.
Kelly Munn.
Here.
Christina Obonse.
Here. Hi, everyone.
Hey, we missed you,
Welcome back.
Christina. We're so happy you're back.
Yes,
and and the rest of our board has excused absences this evening. Lorna Gilmore, Tony Curry, Shay Fleming, Karthik Kashinath, and Kunal Shrivastava.
Thank you, Dale. Okay, so next item on the agenda is public comments. And so I believe we have at least one person here for public comment. Dale, are you aware of anyone else doing public comment today?
No one but Ted is here for public comment.
Okay, please.
Thank you. Thanks for this moment and good evening, everybody. My name is Ted Lucas, as most of you know, and just a citizen here in Issaquah and also a member of the Baha'i community. And we have been so excited about hosting community building socials, for the last year or so. And some of you have been able to attend. It's been wonderful. And we are prepping up for a couple of more. So this is just kind of a heads up. And the first one will be in September 14. And of course, when we get to August, actually it's July, when we get to August and the September meeting, we'll give you more information, more of the details. It's going to be at Ray's house, another. Ray has volunteered to kind of host us in his home for that very informal conversation, and he will be the topic facilitator on strengthening healthcare delivery with community-based organizations, CBOs. Yeah, so that's the cool one for community building, a topic of 45-minute or less informal conversation, learning together, sharing. So that's the way these things go. Community building socials followed by some food and social part, which is always fun, kind of. It's a way for everybody to get to know each other better, share ideas and so forth. So that's why it's gone so well. So that's, we'll get more information for you September 14th, the address and all that. And then another interesting thing is none other than Council Vice President Barbara De Michelle attended one of the community socials, the last one or the prior one, I don't remember which, but it was with the director of the garage, I'm forgetting her name right now. And Robert De Michelle had been a major sponsor advocate at the formation of the garage, so she came along. Presentation by that director, which is great. And then Barbara came back a little while ago and said that she would like to bring herself and 2 other city council members to a future community building social and be the presenter to talk about Issaquah activities, or from the point of view of the city council, things that are happening in the city as a point of conversation and society, social kind of community building. So that'll be in November. We don't have the firm date yet, but we think we're talking about the middle of November. And that'll be fun, exciting, and we'll give you more information about that soon. Okay, thanks so much for your interest and your support, and it's just a great way to build community. Thank you all, and I'll take a back seat, okay? Hang on a little bit.
Appreciate the Baha'i community's outreach and all the community events. that
Yeah.
you all run.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, and next up is approval of minutes. I'll give you all 1 minute to do a quick scan, because I'm assuming you all will have had reviewed it. And then when anyone's ready, please make a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Nice. Okay. Any discussion or amendments suggested?
Yeah.
Alright, I think with that, we can consider our minutes approved.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. Next agenda item is opening question. All right, I gave most of you a preview of the opening question. And the purpose of the opening question is to build relationship and community and to make sure that we have everyone has an opportunity for their voices to enter this space. I think once you talk once, it's easier to speak up and ask questions and comment when we get to other agenda topics of more substance. So with that, the icebreaker question is, what is a song that inspires or motivates you? And I would love for someone just to volunteer to go first and then popcorn it over to the next person until everyone has an opportunity.
I will. One, I can't remember the name of the song ever, so,
Are you gonna sing it for us?
but I'm not gonna do an individual song. Anything by ABBA makes me want to dance and sing and motivates me to get, to just get moving and do whatever it is I want to do. So, there you go. Leslie?
Thank you. Gosh, I'm glad this popped in my head really quickly. It's an old song by an artist by the name of Teddy Pendergrass. So I kind of indirectly told you how old I was. And it's called Life is a Song Worth Singing. And it's just an inspirational song. It talks about it may feel rough, it may feel tough right now, but you're made of better stuff. So yeah, it's a good song, inspiring. So let's see. Hey.
Okay, I was, you're gonna laugh, I'm gonna date myself, but I was at a concert over the weekend in Marymore Park. And the band was none other than Air Supply. And I'm trying to think of anything that they play, inspires me. I can't pull any song.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, so. And the weather and the crowd was perfect.
Who's next, Ryan?
Select someone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Monica.
Okay, I feel kind of young because I don't know who anyone is, but
Monica brings you to this question for us.
but I think my favorite song it's called "In the Stars" by Benson Boone. It's kind of like it's like a sad song, but it just like hypes you up at the same time. So, and then damn.
Excellent. I also wrote that down. I was like, I need to know what the young people are listening to these days. I feel like my song changes pretty frequently. My husband makes a quarterly workout playlist, and one of the songs that I have been just vibing to a lot that gets me kind of pumped up is this song called "Sophisticated" by Rick Ross. A little bit of different, maybe spirit than what we've shared so far. But, and I will turn it over to Christina.
Well, I am like Dale. I have many songs that I really appreciate, but we can say the Beatles. Imagine. Imagine other people. Okay.
Following someone.
You know, I think you know that song. Thank you. Everyone.
Christina, do you want to pass it to someone else to answer the question?
Yeah. I think Ray didn't say anything.
Oh,
No,
right.
Ray already went. It's a little hard to see the video in this. Look at how wild the video is for this room, I gotta say. Yeah, Shawnee's got her hand up.
Or
I
or
can
Lewis,
go.
I don't know who wants to say.
I can go if there's no one else. Most of the songs that inspire me are from the Hindi language, like that I go back to again and again. But as I was growing up, one of the first songs that I could completely understand that was in English was "Another Day in Paradise" by Phil Collins. And till date, that song just resonates so much with me. I mean, it's the lyrics are simple, but they're so deep and emotional. There's a social message with it, and I just that's a song I keep going back to in different moods and different feelings.
How about Jared?
All right,
So also kind of maybe breaking from the current pattern. Nothing as eloquent and beautiful as Phil Collins, but there's a band called Idols, which is a UK band. And it's kind of like it's pretty hard rock. And when I need to feel motivated, that's what I turn on. The particular song is called Never Fight a Man with a Perm. So if that gives you any indication of what type of music we're dealing with, that's a hint. That might also make you think that I have a perm. That's not the case from my mom. I'm not getting my hair permed. But for me, that's my pump up. So yes. And I think the last person that we're gonna, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm quickly, I'll
Okay.
have to close this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ted, do you-
Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
on the spot, Ted.
Okay, I'll switch it all up for you, because I love all kinds of music. And I was downtown in Seattle at a place called Monkey Loft late on Saturday night, just this last week, which is kind of what they call dance music today, electronic dance music, the house music and this and that. And it was sometimes this Latin kind of vibe, or sometimes it's African American vibe, and a guest DJ from Los Angeles mixing it up. And makes me happy. I like to move and feel good, be with a lot of people. So that's a very recent thing of mine.
Did not expect that from you.
I just put it out there.
Yeah. And I think.
Say it, no one would know.
I think I might be the last person. I had a couple of songs. I think I'm gonna select one based on the vibe of the room, but Eminem, Lose Yourself. So for some reason, I associate it with getting married, but it's a pump up song, so in a good way, in a good way. So, and my ulterior motive here is to actually add more music to my motivation playlist. And so I took notes of all of the songs. All right, thank you all for playing along. Let's see, the next item is Dale with the staff report.
Yeah. A very brief report this evening. You all received you are actually all received follow-up already on our meeting last month. Hasanthi Hoagland, who actually works in that office right there, we're right in her neighborhood here, sent out follow-up from the feedback that the board gave on the park plan update already. So she went ahead, and if you've not reviewed that already, I would encourage you to take some time to look at the changes they made to the sort of mission statement of the plan to reflect the feedback that this group gave. That is I guess the only other update. We have name tents again, and reflective of our election at our last meeting. Ray's name tent has been updated for his new position here as vice chair on the board.
Yeah.
And that concludes my update.
Great. And next up, we have Jared Schneider with us, emergency manager. Dale, any setup you want to do?
I'll make a very brief comment. As the board knows, one of our major work plan items has been hearing from every single department over the course of the past year about the ways that they've used and considered the equity framework in the work that they do. Administrative services is a giant department that encompasses a number of different divisions, one of which is emergency management. And so Jared is here this evening on behalf of not only his personal division, but also on behalf of administrative services to share a little bit about the work that he's doing and the way that it incorporates equity, as well as reflecting on some of the questions within the equity framework and how that shaped the work that he's doing now and that he foresees the city doing in its approach to emergency management. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jared.
Cool. Thanks, Dale. Yeah, while we're a giant department, emergency management it's a pretty small team. It's me plus an intern who's like 16 hours a week. But it's so much more than that too. Emergency management, for those that don't know, is kind of an oddity in government, honestly. It's something that's often unseen or really kind of flies under the radar under most governments, things like parks and are really public, and with human services and things like that. But what emergency management does, for those that don't know, is we coordinate our response to disasters. So leading up to those disasters, we're preparing, but what that really looks like, during the disasters, we bring together people. So whether it's fire, police, public works, human services, Wally, city council, right? Like, we kind of serve as the tent in which everyone sits underneath, so that we can make sure that our response is coordinate to whatever's happening, in the city. So, like I said, it's not unique to Issaquah. There's emergency managers in every city, up in the county, state, and then all the way up to federal level, which is FEMA, which is what most people recognize from emergency management. So, I'm the city's emergency manager. That's me. Just a little bit about myself. I've been here for only a year with the city. Prior to that, I was with King County for 5 years and the Red Cross before up in Snohomish County. But what really got me into this actually is a topic that's really rooted, I think, in this group too. I was living in India, believe it or not. I was actually working in India for a year for a law firm. And while I was there was a really bad monsoon season, and I saw how bad the monsoon actually affected those that were poor or disadvantaged within the community. And it just got me super interested in disaster response and emergency management in general. And so when my visa didn't get renewed and they said, go back home, Jared, I came back and I kind of started down this path of emergency management. So that's a little bit about me, first of all, but I'm really excited to talk to you all because this is an area in government that has, I think, so much to grow in terms of equity, emergency management. And to kind of tee up the conversation a little bit, I want to talk about some of the principles under emergency management that we have that kind of guide the way that we do things, but really where I think, this group and hopefully, all of us can get to a better place in the field of emergency management. So there's really three main priorities when it comes to any incident response. It's life safety, instant stabilization, which just means stopping the thing from getting worse. And then the last one is property preservation, right? But what we know, it's just life safety. It's not good enough. It is only really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to disasters. And typically, long after the disaster is gone, right, is like 95% of what's left, right? And so there's all the recovery, there's the re-community building, there's trying to pick up the pieces of these lives that have been really interrupted by whatever, hazard might have done this. So life safety isn't good enough. That's not the only thing that we can focus on in emergency management or as the city's, emergency manager. A community is only as resilient as our most vulnerable elements. We know that's true. We'll talk about that a little bit more later and about how disasters really, impact different folks. And then, really ultimately, we want to build a more effective emergency management program by integrating equity into really all the levels of what we do, right? Before, during, and after a disaster happens. So with that, there's a little bit of a misconception about disasters. It's that everyone is essentially impacted equally, right? Oftentimes we'll hear, right, oh, the hurricane doesn't discriminate or the earthquake doesn't discriminate, right? But we do know that people experience disasters inequitably throughout our city and throughout our communities, right? So really what it does is it actually kind of highlights those inequities even more, right? So some of the areas that we're conscientious where, more vulnerable populations are dealing with more exposure is in that list there. Like there's typically closer proximity to hazardous material facilities, right? Which can be potentially life-threatening to folks, right? If those fail. There's typically less insurance coverage, poor quality of housing stock, right? I don't think that's a problem in Issaquah. We don't need to worry about that. Poor quality public infrastructure, typically, right? You'll find nicer roads and nicer, elements of infrastructure in richer neighborhoods typically. And then no insulation against shock. And shock, what we mean here, right, is like financial shock, right? Whenever there's a disaster, there's a financial element for folks that are living paycheck to paycheck, right? To add something like, oh, the place that you were renting, all your items are lost in it. How do you recover from something like that, right? And when you are paycheck to paycheck. So again, yeah, while the hazard itself might not discriminate, what's left, is a very disproportionate impact on our community, right? So that's something that, like I said, we have in mind, but there's still so much farther to go. So in that, I really want to talk about this element probably when we get to the end of the presentation in particular, because I'd love to pick your all's brain about how to really incorporate the equity framework best into our emergency operations. So We have that tent that I was kind of referring to earlier. Is called our Emergency Operations Center. That's where everyone comes together, right? And some of the activations and response that I've been part of, I've seen it play out in different ways. Like some jurisdictions will actually like appoint an individual who's like the equity officer, and their whole job is to be looking out for, for equity and how, different programs or how our actions or our response may not be equitable. Another way that I've seen is like everyone gets like really kind of like a rush equity training, and then is instructed to be like, okay, keep the whole community in your mind, right? As we're doing these things. And, both have pros and cons, both have shortfalls, right? And really, yeah, I'm excited to talk about that a little bit more at the end of the presentation, like I said. But really what it comes down to and why it's so important in response is because we know there's populations that we aren't hearing from, right? You all know the adage, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so that's true really for a lot of government response too, traditionally, when it comes to emergencies, right? The person who picks up the phone, that calls you, that tells you like, oh, hey, my street hasn't been plowed in, 2 hours or something like that, right? Like, we tell our public works department they're out there, right? But there's so many populations within Issaquah that, may not be comfortable with interfacing, with the government or with Issaquah that way, or maybe just don't know that they can pick up, the phone and call and be like, hey, get out here, right? There's just this, it's not a level playing field, right? When it comes to information flow. Yeah, one other thing that we think about, right, is there any other complications caused by whatever hazard or emergency we're having that might make someone more vulnerable, right? So one of the ones that we're actually planning for right now and kind of like dealing with is people who rely on like medical devices at home, like hard medical devices. Puget Sound Energy is planning on turning the power off in response to like really high wildfire risk days. Now, this is something that they're rolling out this year, but that's an example of a population, right? Where like, PSD flips the switch and powers off. That in itself is an emergency for that individual, right? But that's just one example. You take all of these other hazards that we have, right? Smoke, heat, cold snaps, and then obviously, the bigger ones like earthquakes and things like that, or wildfires, where there's all these considerations of our populations that are sometimes really challenging during the heat of an incident for responders and for people in that in that emergency operations center to really be accounting for, right? And so it's a huge area for growth, and I think the equity framework will help with that. And like I said, I'm really excited about the discussion when we get there. But this last bullet point is kind of going to lead into one program that I want to highlight that I think we're doing. I think we're going the right way about it, but I want to check with you all to see if you have other thoughts and areas that we can also improve with it. But it's really, how do we reach people when there is an emergency going on, right? We talk about languages. There's hundreds, right, spoken within King County, and Issaquah is no exception. I think like there's this public use micro area data that we can look at. There's like 129 between us, Sammamish, and Kirkland. So that's a ton of languages, right? And when you get emergency alerts, they're most likely going to be sent in English, right? So there's a huge risk that our emergency messages don't reach the whole population. So that kind of plays into one of the topics I want to focus on with you all here, and that's emergency notification during emergencies. So before we kind of delve into what our kind of equity strategy is with it, I want to highlight the capabilities because it'll kind of make more sense, right, within the context of knowing what our options are when it comes to alert notification. So there's a system called Alert King County Code Red. It's also known as Reverse 911 in some circles, but really what it is, it's a system that the county owns that that they make available to us cities, where we can send text, calls, emails, TDD messages, and then all those messages are translated into 13 languages, like automatically, which is like a little fraud, too, like that raises the eyebrows sometimes, right? But it's pretty good from what we've heard from native speakers. And then it also gives us the capability that we can put like pre-translated messages into them. So you may have received them before. They There's something that we send out pretty infrequently. It's something that by state law, we can only send out for life safety issues and considerations. So it's not something, that we'd ever be like, come to concerts on the green, we would
Yeah.
never use that system for that, right? It's something that is truly for emergencies. There's kind of two databases that make up that system. There is pretty much the phone book, like the white and yellow pages. All those contacts are automatically added, but how many people do you know have landlines anymore? Not many, but some. And then there's also opt-ins essentially. So people who can sign up on a website, which is what that poster is trying to get folks to do. So that's one of our tools. That's probably the tool that we use the most, honestly, because we can ensure that it hits a lot of different message outlets, right? And mediums like that, text call, emails is really good. The second tool that we have is something called wireless emergency alerts. Now, these you've probably gotten before. They're like Amber alerts. They're that same type of message. We can also send those. What's great about those is, you don't need to be signed up for a service. You just draw a square on the map. And then if you drive through that square or if someone's in that square, they're going to receive that message as long as they have it noted or turned on their phone. There's like a little setting. Everyone has it turned on automatically, but some people do get annoyed with those Amber alerts, so they turn them off, which is unfortunate, for us who are worried about life safety things. That's actually a federally ran system, and they have recently rolled out the ability to send it in either English or Spanish. So that's a system improvement, and they've stated that they want to expand it to more and more languages as the years go on. The third tool that we use is the emergency alert system. I'm sorry that all these names are so similar. You can definitely tell that this was not done in a coordinated way, right? Considering one another. But what the emergency alert system is that classic 3-tone radio message that you'll hear. The brr, that's the emergency alert system. So that's another tool we have. That one we use really sparingly because whenever we send out one of those, it actually hits pretty much the whole west side of Washington. Just the way that, thanks, Dale. Just the way that our radio towers are set up and whatnot, it'll essentially alert, a huge area, right? And some of these other tools that we've highlighted are a little bit more precise, right? A little bit more control on where it goes as opposed to 13 counties. Lastly, we kind of have the traditional media stuff that you think about: social media, news alerts, TV, et cetera, right? Like the news channels there. We push those messages to those individuals too. And they, help us amplify whatever emergency message that we have to share with the community. So that's our existing tools, right? You gotta look in the toolbox of what it looks like for alert in the morning. So that's what we're playing with. As we were saying earlier, we have hundreds of languages, right? Spoken in our area. You see like 13, right? Like up there on Code Red. That's a huge gap, right? And that's also assuming that someone has a cell phone, to also use that system. So alerts and alert and warning is something that is difficult, but it's something that we have to pursue, right? Because you look at something like Lahaina, recently, where not everyone got the message to evacuate, right? And we had over 100 people who died, on Maui, and that's just like not acceptable, right? When it comes to government alert warning of an incident, right? So that's like the nightmare scenario, right? That's what we're trying really hard to avoid, a situation like that in Issaquah. So with that, I would like to introduce you all to, drumroll please, the Trusted Partner Network. So this is a what is it? It's a volunteer group is really what it is, and a volunteer program that is comprised of individuals who have access to communities, either via language or just, they're part of a community that maybe government doesn't traditionally have the best relationship with, or doesn't have the ability to send those messages translated to. So really what it is, it's like a language-based group of volunteers that will receive those emergency messages that we get and then re-amplify them out through their community, right? So the way it works is they get the message and they share it out, right? And they encourage those, community members to also share it, to others who may not be receiving that information. Like I said, this is a county program too, right? So like everyone in King County is taking part of this. So, while we're sitting here in Issaquah, it really taps into really the wealth of language, speakers throughout the whole county area. What it practically looks like is the cities along with King County. We host orientations, we host drills, and then really try to do as much pre-work as we can with pre-translations for like our hazards, right? So a good example of that is like our wildfire alerts. Like we already have our wildfire emergency messages like translated, I think, into like 17 languages at this point, saying that, if there's a wildfire outside of the blank neighborhood, evacuate immediately. Like we've been doing work on like pre-translating those. So that group helps us with that. It's completely volunteer, we don't ask or, we don't require anyone to do anything. And but a lot of these community members are pretty passionate about, making sure that their community gets that information. So all to say, it's a system that's managed, right, and ran, and it has a lot of support. There's actually someone at King County who it's like 50% of their job is to really just manage this group of people, which is great. It's a great investment. So how it works is the individual who's interested in volunteering would sign up for that alert King County, that reverse 911 system, right, that we were talking about. Then let's just say we do have a wildfire, right? That those members, like regardless if regardless of their proximity to that wildfire, will receive that English message saying, there's a wildfire outside of this area, yada yada yada. Immediately after that, they receive another message that says, trusted partner network volunteer, please distribute and resocialize and like rebroadcast this message out to your community, as you see fit. So that's really like the nuts and bolts of how we do it. One other thing about it is like really King County, sometimes they will ask for information about how the message was distributed, right? Like they want to know like, oh, did you send this over like or Discord, or did you like send it over WhatsApp, right? Like what are the avenues that you're using to rebroadcast this, right? Because eventually the hope is like government wants to grow with the community too. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we also want to make sure that we support platforms and different types of media that can be fit into those, whatever they are, whatever avenue they're taking. So then lastly, the TPM members then will kind of, they can report back, right, to the county if they hear from someone in their community who does have a need, right, that the county may not be filling, or the city might not be filling.
Right.
So, like I was saying earlier, the squeaky wheel, right, like this kind of gives another option for community members to be like, hey, can you tell Jared, that, our group or I'm, like trapped in my house and I need to get to a doctor's appointment, for this, serious health condition I have, or the serious operation I have, right? That's something that we hope, gets filtered back up to us, because then, we can help with resources to get that person to where they need to go, right? So that's the ultimate dream. That's how it works. How it helps, I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, I think we can all see the benefit in a program like this, just making sure that we get that information to people who don't speak English. Here's some frequently asked questions that we typically get about this program. It's like, how often will I be contacted? We usually like send them out 3 to 5 times a year is when those events kind of reach that level of actual like life safety message. That seems pretty high, right? But that's like a county-wide threshold, and some other city, there might be something going on, whether it's like a boil water advisory or some other small hazard, right? Is my information protected? Yes. Community members, we don't share any of that. We keep, individuals confidential throughout the whole process. They're not identified. Am I always expected to translate? No is really the answer. Working on pre-translating stuff, but no, there's not an expectation. Like we've heard that sometimes too from, I think we have a volunteer who has like a community or like with like a really anti-government group of people up in the hills of King County. And, they're like, hey, like I disagree with a lot of what you guys are doing, but like I want to make sure if there's something like a wildfire that my people know, right? And so like that's an example of someone who they all speak English, right? But that person kind of serves as that bridge, right? And they're trusted within that community, so they can, make sure that even that group, right, gets the information when needed. How often do I know when to stop sharing the information? When is the emergency over, right? And it's like, just keep going, keep sharing it as much as you can. And then, we don't really send like a, stop sharing the message out to trusted partner network volunteers, only because like, we don't want to blow up their phone any more than we're already doing. And not only that is like the emergency, like I was saying earlier, right? Sometimes like they're longer, right? They're longer than just like the immediate impact of what's happening, right? So if later, we're going to be doing things like public assistance or individual assistance out in the community in terms of like, come here and, the Red Cross is here to help with, hotel vouchers, right? That's potential information someone may be interested in, right? That's outside of that initial emergency message, right? So again, yeah, we just keep sharing it to hit people. And then, yeah, are there orientations and are there engagements? Yes, absolutely. We do them all the time. So, yeah, so also should say too, if anyone has any questions or anything, just, yeah, please slow me down and stop me. And yeah, feel free to ask because,
I think you said it, but not only do you send them emergency information, you
Yep.
also send them information that could be meaningful to their community.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Because otherwise it's so one way, right?
Exactly, yeah, and that honestly, to me, that's one of the biggest values is if it starts
Yeah.
pulling back up to us,
Yes.
right? Because that's, were you all kind of tuned into like the flooding in South Park, like like a year ago or something like that? There was like it was like a high tide plus a lot of rain,
Uh-huh.
flooded out like a big area in South Park in Seattle. And it turned out that there was like, I don't know, like 30 individuals, I think from like the Hmong community, perhaps. I forget which community it was, but they were just like essentially living out in this like flooded apartment. And, they essentially, there was like this lack of communication that was happening because they weren't getting any messages.
Yeah.
And, but if we have someone, right, who does have an inroad, hopefully we can avoid situations like that, right? And we could hear that, there's these 30 individuals who are looking for housing. Maybe we can hook them up with Monica, and her human resources team, and let's see if we can find a spot, for them. And that's the ultimate dream. So yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. It's not just the emergency alert. It's kind of like that's the primary, but then after that, it's like information about the emergency, right? That may be beneficial, and it's used very sparingly, right? Like we are not trying to, again, promote, concerts on the green or anything like that through these avenues. It's truly life safety stuff.
A
Yeah.
couple more questions.
Yeah.
Which natural disasters or disasters are in scope for this work?
Oh,
And
yeah.
then which 13, like how are the 13 languages identified?
Yeah, definitely. So, let me actually pull up another slide from another presentation that I happen to have up that I'm giving tomorrow morning. So it looks very nice. Okay, let's see.
You're already in here, yeah.
Can we see that? Okay,
Yeah.
so here are the hazards that we actively plan for within the city of Issaquah. So we have them separated into two different categories, natural and human caused hazards. So we have earthquake, volcano, which if you're like, Jared, where's the volcanoes in Issaquah? It's really like the tephra, the ash,
Yeah.
from the volcano, right? That could impact us. Landslides, wildfire, flood, severe weather is kind of a catch-all for like heat waves, cold snaps, things like that. On the human cause side, we have hazardous material releases, health incident, that's like a pandemic, essentially. I think we can all think of an example of that one. Terrorism, cyber incidents, and then dam failure. That's kind of like the other one that typically surprises people. You're like, yeah, where are the dams, in Issaquah? Well, we actually have all these big stormwater ponds up in the highlands and other
Yeah.
development areas.
Mhm.
They're so big that if they failed, they would actually be they cause a lot of property damage, honestly. So it's something also that we actively plan for. So yeah, those are the hazards that we have. The 13 languages that have been added into that code red system are just by the vendor. They are the ones who are driving that. They have to kind of upgrade the system to be able to send the characters or something like that in those different languages. I'm not sure the exact specifics of it, but it's something that we don't unfortunately have much control in, especially as it's the county who's the one who contracts with that vendor, and we just really benefit from that contract. But it is growing, which is the good news. So hopefully more and more will get added. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
I was gonna wait till you're done.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so here's just a few numbers that I want to highlight, but it's really, so Christina, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I just am wondering what happened when a disaster is here and we don't have internet or electricity. Are you considering any other way to communicate with people by radio or I don't know?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, right? I mean, that's like one of the other, yeah, we're so reliant, on our phones and technology and things like Wi-Fi that, yeah, we actually have a community radio station, 1700 AM. I wouldn't recommend you tune in because there's just a looping message saying, in the case of an emergency, we'll, give you information here, but that is something that we have. We actually broadcast out of Pickering Barn, believe it or not. So, that's one tool that we do have. There's also a pretty big network of ham radio operators throughout Issaquah. For those that don't know, it's like kind of an old-fashioned version of radio. And we have a lot of spirited volunteers who are happy to share that information with their neighbors. And that also extends to a whole bigger volunteer group of individuals that we have called the Community Emergency Response Team. In Issaquah, it's like a group of about 400 volunteers that also are here to help out, the city of Issaquah that a lot of them are trained in that ham radio. So we communicate with them in a situation like you described, Christina, via radio. But again, it's a serious challenge.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So yeah, just a few numbers here. It's been 3 years since recruitment began for this program. That's kind of a misnomer though. It was only really in the last like 6 months has this program been beneficial, but we had some very when this idea was first being kind of hatched, there were some individuals who were really excited about it, so they wanted it on the ground floor. So that's why I say 3 years. But 5 months since the official launch of the program. That's literally the number underneath it. There we go. At this point, we have 64 active volunteers. 29 languages are spoken by those volunteers, and then in the drills that we've done, 17 of those languages, have been people partaken in those drills, right? And kind of or taking actions that would simulate them rebroadcasting those messages, right? They don't actually do it as part of the drill, but yeah, that's where we're at right now. So we still got a long ways to go, right? When you look at it, but like I said, we're just starting it. So here's some of the ways, and this is where I would love y'all's feedback on. Here's kind of our plan to build this out in Issaquah. I think the last time I checked, only 3 of those individuals are residents within Issaquah of those volunteers, which again isn't the biggest deal because we as a county, it's like a county thing, right? We kind of share those languages and help rebroadcast those. But again, I think personally, I would rather have Issaquah, residents involved in this, right? Because chances are they're gonna, in their micro community, right? They'll be located in Issaquah. But all this to say, here's our plan. So we're going to partner with existing community organizations or entities where confidence already exists, right? So one of the people that I've already engaged with this topic about is actually Lorna, because Lorna, has a great network through the school district, right, where she makes sure that parents get all the information that they need, right? So that's an individual that I'm working on to see if we can tap into that. We got some background work to do essentially because the school's super sensitive about anything like that. One thing that we kind of know is that when we recruit from existing pools of volunteers, like you're kind of already fighting like a downhill battle, right? When you recruit from existing volunteers, only because we know that there are people who kind of have that volunteer spirit or whatever you want to call it, So I mentioned that the CERT group, that's ran in the city, within there, I'm sure we have some volunteers who could be potentially interested in and also volunteering for the Trusted Partner Network. And then lastly, we hope to just do some broad advertisement through the regular city channels, right? Whether it be Twitter or the news flashes or next door, Facebook ad buys, whatever, we want to do really to just kind of highlight this program, right? But with that, that's pretty much all I was going to say about the Trusted Partner Network. And I'd love to hear, one, any ideas that you have for potentially, get more folks involved, or two, just feedback on how we can make this program better, or if there's other ways that you're aware of, or we can help reach people with emergency alerts outside of the trusted partner network, right? So, yeah, that's it. I know it's a lot to dig into.
Yeah. First of all, what a fascinating topic when it comes to equity. I mean, my mind is just going,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thinking who, what, when, where, how, why.
Yeah.
You know? So when I think of Issaquah, I don't think of major disasters for some reason. So have you guys done any kind of, like, what is it that would cause an emergency response so massive that it would really require, what I'm asking for is predictive modeling. So this could happen here in this part of Issaquah that would affect this community. And is that community going to have challenges receiving the care that they need because of where they live? Like, I'll give you an example. The only one that I thought of immediately was when the bad rain season happened and like Juniper flooded.
Or that.
The last slide.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's right by. where
Yeah.
you live.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's just a question, if that's been done, because that would be, there's so many components to that, right? What is it that caused the disaster? What region was impacted? And is there an equity issue in that region?
Definitely. So this is perfect timing that you have this question because I have two things. So we are updating something called the hazard mitigation plan. All jurisdictions do it, but the part that's important about this plan is just that. So what we do is we look at every single hazard, right, and really understand our vulnerability and exposure to that hazard, right? So one of the ones that we know for sure is like wildfire, right? So this is a situation where we know that, like, if it happens, let's just say outside of Taos, right, that we're going to need to make sure that, it hits that threshold that you were talking about, right, where we need to send those emergency alerts. You know, we know that there's a pretty high likelihood, given the right climatic situations or what's happening, you know, that it could spread and be pretty catastrophic, right? To what extent, we're not quite sure. It's actually something that we just kicked off today as we're studying our wildfire evacuation in Issaquah. So we'll actually get real time estimates on how long it'll take for people to get outside of Issaquah. But part of that, what plays into factor is just actually getting the message, right, that there's an evacuation going on. So, like, you know, if it takes someone 30 minutes, right, to even hear that there's an evacuation going on, you know, what does that do to, their ability to evacuate, right? It's not good for it. So, so all that to say, we're I know, like, Issaquah, you don't really associate, right, with hazards. It's actually something that us on the West Coast really struggle with, or really Washington and Oregon in some ways, is like, in the South and other places in the US, they get hurricanes every year. You know what I mean? It's like, this is all muscle memory, right? But for us, our hazards are what we call like low frequency, like they don't happen very much, but high impact. So, when they do happen, they're typically really bad, right? So, like, think like Oso landslide, think, like if we have big earthquake like the, Cascadia subduction zone or the Seattle fault erupts.
Rumbling.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, right? Okay, all right. But
it answers, so thank you. And the other question that I have is, you mentioned like South Park. And when I think of our neighboring city, Seattle, there's definitive income gaps based on the zip code or the area. Like the Central District could have a heat wave and their air conditioner wouldn't work, and that would cause some issues. It's again because of equity and that hits those topics. Like, where in Issaquah would that be an issue? Because consider Issaquah, and it's not a poor city. You know what I mean? So
Dale actually probably has a good answer for this. Well, sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, we've done a little bit of an assessment of across the city as part of some of the surveying we've done on parts of the city that maybe do have greater need, or are more likely to be vulnerable. David actually and our sustainability team have done a lot more work on it than even we have. But we're actually working with our parks team, and they've come and talked a little bit about this, but we were working with our parks team on their survey, but also with our public works team on their survey to sort of map some of the demographic information we have, including income, across the city, to know if there are pockets of the community that may be more at risk.
Okay.
Yeah, Issaquah is also like an aging community.
Yeah.
The age is going up, right? And with that also comes like income typically, right? So there's not that, that mobility, right? So yeah, that's one of our big considerations, but it's been a challenge honestly for us because there's a lot of grants available at federal levels that really prioritize vulnerable populations, of which we know we have in Issaquah, right? But it's not in the same isolation that you're talking about, right? Like in South Park. And so it's like it's an added challenge on how do we advocate for vulnerable populations in a community that does have a decent amount of influence, right? But those individuals are still there, right?
Yeah.
It's this huge gap in in really federal systems to provide for those individuals, to be honest. And so yeah, it's a huge challenge, and you're totally hitting on it, right? So yeah.
And then just one last comment, because you were talking about building the network. You're familiar with the Issaquah Nourishing Network?
It sounds familiar.
Okay,
Okay.
I would recommend speaking to Monica and Hannah,
Okay.
because they're the ones that have all these groups that meet once a month. And they talk about the services they provide and the people that can benefit from those services. I mean, the Baha'is on the series. So it's just a way to get the word out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. It's online. Just look at Issaquah Nourishing Network, and that lists all these organizations that are here that could benefit from this presentation, I think. Just get feedback from them.
Great, thank you. Perfect.
Just have a general comment, and I'm a bit partisan in that I actually am a general manager for Providence Point, and it is a 55 and better community. And yeah, not exactly better. Our average age is about 70 years old, and it's starting to tick up to where it's actually getting older. So it's a relatively affluent community, but our vulnerability is the age of our populace, mobility challenges.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and a lot of the concerns that I've been talking to them about for close to a year are things like, how are we notified about emergencies that are happening or challenges, anything along that line that are happening in the greater Issaquah area that could have a effect on the community. Communication is always a huge consideration. And so we have some CERT members, we have our own ham radio community. And so I'm very interested in joining this network because I want to make sure that we're pushing out information that's impactful, that makes sense to the community, and gives them a feeling that they're not just an island to themselves.
Right.
There's a huge concern that if something happens, whatever the if is, that they won't have the attention, the resources, the whatever it is that one would need during an emergency. And so I want to allay that concern with action and with communication. So I think this is a great initiative. I would love to be part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, that's a community that also, I would love to do more work in. I think you all met with David at one point to talk about resilience hubs, right? He came here. My dream was to have one up there in Providence Point, perhaps at the community center. But
I'd love to chat with you about that.
okay, that sounds great. Okay, awesome. I'll also be up there next Friday, I think, for a Providence Point board meeting. Believe it or not, they're having me out to talk about sometime in July.
Is it the foundation?
I think it might be.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'll
Good to
see you
know.
up there. All right. Yeah.
A friendly face.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have like these grand dreams, right? I'm thinking about like this idea of like, it seems like there's several layers of issues here, right? Like, to Ray's point, like where can we predict where incidences of various kinds are gonna happen? And then I'm thinking about like demographic characteristics of what make people very vulnerable. So, it could be income, it could be health, just other like mobility issues, things like that. And then I'm thinking about, we don't have that information yet, right? But I think, in the short term or in the absence of having that type of information, if there's like, you kind of named one, like if there's a set of personas, you could be thinking about like some of the worst case scenarios, like people who have these intersections of living in a certain area, having, mobility issues, being cut off from electricity. I'm just thinking about how can I reach those people? And then when it comes time to like recruiting and partnering with organizations, like if you, in the absence of like mapped, like where you know there's gaps, like maybe try to design and do outreach and recruit people who can reach those most vulnerable groups. The idea being like, if you reach those, you're probably gonna catch all the other folks too.
Totally got it. Yeah.
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 So I don't know what those personas could look like, but maybe kind of design for like thinking back individuals in mind. I was thinking about my mom, but I mean, I obviously she's got access to me, but you know, she's like, you know, in her mid-70s. She lives alone. She's mobile, but she's not like great with the internet. And I'm thinking if her power gets cut off, like what is she gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of like those personas. I mean, honestly, as we're updating this plan, it would be pretty cool to almost like attach a persona to each of the hazards to be like, you know, this is someone who may be particularly, you know, vulnerable to this hazard, you know, just to bring it down to or if, because I mean, you all know, you've seen some of the plans, you know, that we put together and like, you know, the city has, you know, they're not always the most, like user friendly or really evocative, right? Especially in the heat of a response, you know, but something like, imagining a person, you know, I think that's a great shortcut to thinking about others.
And I'm thinking about even that last image with the mudslide or the landslide you had. So that road was blocked off for a while, and so it was detoured. But the detour was to get on I-90. So what do you do if you use a bicycle or you go ahead? You can't use I-90 to get past that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The reroute is like 5 times as long or something, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do in circumstance? I mean, luckily it wasn't for very long, but
Yeah. That's all great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And that kind of plays into that response question too, that, you know, not just the trusted partners network one, but I was, you know, like, we'll get to that too. But like, like how do we really, you know, make sure that equity is integrated, right, in our response and ask those questions. It's hard, you know, but I think I love that idea of the personas.
And I'm thinking like what you shared with us today is the first part, you know, of a response, right? Just notifying people of the response and what to do, but like when people have needs and, you know, things like that. So I was part of the COVID response, the public health response.
Oh, no way. Okay.
So I'm like, we're like, we know it happened in Snohomish County, but we could have also predicted that South King County would be the most impacted because of this intersection around health, income, race, and all of that. But yet we were late to respond.
Yeah.
And so like, how do you anticipate all that?
Yeah. Oh, so cool. Maybe we'll have to trade stories later.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was just wondering, like, what is the process to become a volunteer? And also, do you have like an age restriction?
No age restriction. Yeah. So if you visit that URL there, kingcounty.gov/TPN, which stands for that Trusted Partners Network, they have a form there and some more information, you know, and things maybe that I didn't cover, but that's the best spot to sign up.
And then do you guys have like a social media page?
Ooh, I don't know.
I know there's like rules and regulations, like certain like organizations like under the government like can't create or like I know there's specific rules, but like that could help in like spreading like information and allowing volunteers to like sign up.
Yeah. I think I know, you know, for sure we have like just regular government, you know, random ones, but having an individual one, I'll float that by the King County folks who manage it to see if they'd be interested in that. That's a great idea. I like that. Thank you. Yeah. Sure.
Can I ask a question? Sure.
Please.
So one thing is to become a volunteer, I think. And the other thing is to become a beneficiary or recipient as a group, to be contacted in a micro community, for example, and then spread it. How does the person get connected or enroll to become a recipient of the information?
So to be part of that Trusted Partners Network?
Yeah, here for this. I mean, is that the same thing as being a member?
So I think, so you're asking like to not be like a volunteer itself, but to be someone who like gets contacted by a Trusted Partners Network member. Honestly, it's not really something, you enroll in only because it's like that individual's really community, right? Like whatever, like, I'm trying to think what's the best way to put it. Like, so sometimes there can be like, WhatsApp, you know, group chats, right? Full of like, you know, like Russian speakers or something like that, right? And so, you know, if you're already part of that group, right, then a trusted partner network who's also part of that WhatsApp group would hopefully send the message there, right? So really, It's more just like if you're part of one of those communities, you'll hopefully get in contact or you will be contacted by that person, but it's not really like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Okay.
that is the connection. To be a member,
Uh-huh.
you'll get, if you're a member, you'll get this information
Yeah.
and potentially in the language that you need it in.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
To
Yes.
then be able to circulate it or share it with your community.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
It's gotta be that bridge. Somebody's
Right.
got to really magnify and
Yeah.
replicate this out
Mhm. Yeah.
to many, many microclimates.
Exactly. You got it. Yeah. Yeah. And there's many. Yeah. Many, like you said, we need a lot more than 64 volunteers. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So how are you going about telling people and
Yeah.
recruiting?
Yeah, so honestly, you heard my one and only effort so far, which is reaching out to Lorna. But this whole year is really it's gonna be a focus of our emergency management program. So the communications team is gonna help me out a lot with more on the public side of things, but really yeah, hearing about the Care Coalition, I think is what, yeah, Nourishing Network. Okay, I got it written down. Okay, yeah, like, but that's a great, way that I can, yeah, hopefully get in front of folks, and I have also talked to like Stephanie, at the food bank, right? Like there's all these flyers and these pre-made resources too that exist out there. And so even just like putting them, in the food bank, right? And places where, community members frequent is another way. But yeah, hopefully, we're actually gonna track the metrics on it and see how we're doing, and see if we can get more in Issaquah, but yeah, that's the plan. So, yeah, not too much yet, but more coming.
The CERT network is very, it's really highly regarded,
Mm.
right? I know people who are in it. I know of it. I have been part of, actions with them.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. It floods down here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So third, yeah.
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 So, I just wonder how it became so highly regarded and how you do the same with this.
Mm.
So that it's something people want to be a part of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think that is what they're trying to. So like, there's even like kind of social get-togethers with all the Trusted Partner Network members. I've actually never made it to one, but I hear they're really fun. Like honestly, because you just get a lot of like similar to United people, but very different people all together, right? So
Right.
it's like kind of a raucous party,
That's great.
right?
It's good to know that that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gonna be part of success.
And I think that is a big reason why the CERT program has been really successful in this cause, because it is like, it feels like a community,
Yeah.
for a lot of the members.
It
So,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So since you guys recruit from all ages.
Yeah.
In high schools, they have clubs for different communities, the
Mhm.
Korean club, Indian club.
Mhm.
And I think if you recruit members from there,
Yeah.
you can like tap into those communities.
Love it.
And yeah, and if you need any help with that, I'd be happy to help.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Yeah.
I see Shawnee's got her hands up. Shawnee, would you like to comment or question?
Just some thoughts. In my experience of working on disaster, I think the couple of things that really worked were when you divide the whole thing into phases like preparedness, response, and rehabilitation. And then when you talk about partner networks, mapping through that and seeing like which bodies actually can feed into which part of the management, and not he just mentioned about tapping into high school. Just tapping into nonprofits or religious organizations can always be tricky, but those kind of systems that are already there, for example, if I given the Indian network, let's just say, because I'm close to that, if we have a system where we know that somebody is registering any seniors that are coming into the community, then that takes care of a lot of things, and that organization is there to take care of a large part of that part. So when you say 64 people in the network, does it only cater to, my question would be, does it only cater to individuals, or can we encourage organizations to be part of that network? That's number one. So something on those lines. And the other thought that was also concerning was, when there is any kind of disaster, one part that we've talked about is communication, which is so important, but the other part is also to kind of plan ahead and think of the things that may be needed, right? And in the response, and to make sure that that's where the equity part is taken care of, because some things can be easily overlooked, which we're not taking, which are specific to certain gender or needs.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I know that's certainly an area that we could grow in, honestly. It's just our preparedness. Yeah, it's typically it's interesting whenever we do, put on certain preparedness events, we end up getting a population that looks really like mono, it tends to be the same group over and over again. And I think that is a huge area that we can definitely grow in. So yeah, thank you for that feedback on both accounts. And for your first question, in terms of like community or like more like organizations signing up, that's actually something I'm not sure of. That's kind of the first I've heard of that. So I'll follow up with like the King County folks too, to just see if that's something maybe that they have like more experience in. But I think honestly, it wouldn't be hard, and if not, maybe what it could just look like is just adding all those people individually, into that list of trusted partners, and yeah, it may not be like the group, right? But it'd be the individuals who make up the group, perhaps. So yeah, I'll look into that though, and I can let Dale know. Is that the best way? Yeah. All right.
Okay, I think we're just about wrapping up this topic. Any last comments or questions for Jared?
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you
guys.
so
Yeah.
much. Appreciate your
Thank you.
energy
Oh.
and commitment to bringing more equity into this work.
Likewise. No, thank you all. Yeah, I was really excited to come here because I got a lot of great nuggets, to take back. So yeah, thank you. Great rest of your meeting. Yeah.
Okay, well, so our next topic is the letter to the mayor and city council to the mayor and city council related to regional events. And Ray and I we didn't plan how we were gonna cover this, but Ray, do you want to do any kind of opening comments, setup?
You go and I'll support you. I'm happy to.
Okay.
First of all, a big thank you to Dale for writing this. I mean, the verbiage is
Yes.
perfect. So she's the one that put it together, and just Pretty and I had opportunity to comment, and we reached out to some folks for some feedback.
Yeah. I guess one point of clarification here, Dale, can I name jurisdictions as I discuss the context?
You can just know that you're on the record.
All right, okay. So, recently, I would say probably in the last 6 weeks or so, there's been a couple of news stories about a city and a neighboring county. So neighboring city and a neighboring county around remarks by elected officials that are, I guess, harmful, discriminatory, and biased against our LGBTQ plus populations, as well as our Black populations. And so this happened I'll just say, so Newcastle, there was objections in the city to raising the pride flag for June. And then there was a county council member, I believe, in Pierce County, who made remarks about how she felt uncomfortable being in the room where they had a pride flag on display. And then the mayor of Newcastle also made remarks about that were just against reparations for our past with enslaved people, and also just saying, dismissive remarks about how they need to get over it and things like that. And so it's just really, I think, given our history and the progress, I know progress is uneven, but it seems like we're in a moment of tremendous backlash and people feeling very comfortable to make these statements out loud. And I think when more folks talk in this, I would say hateful way, it amplifies the hate. and the actions and the bias. And it also makes folks from those communities feel less safe where they live. And so I think because of that, we wanted to say something that acknowledges it and then also tries to make, move in a positive direction. Yeah. And I'll pause.
Well, thank you. That was great. Tia, with the history behind this, but I think we have our mayor who puts out a picture raising the pride flag, so we should be very proud of our leadership here. And also our city council members who support us. And then what we want to use this as an opportunity to continue the discussion on why we need an equity impact assessment. Here's an example of something that's surfaced in a neighboring community. Why not do that here so we can understand the better, if there's any concerns within the residents of Issaquah, there's an opportunity to do an assessment and hear their voices. So maybe some are even thinking this, and here's a chance for us to dive into our community and just get feedback. Or they're being too quiet, or maybe somebody had an issue with Mayor Polly raising the flag here and we just haven't uncovered it. So it's just a way for us to move that discussion forward. I think there's a budget discussion that needs to be incorporated in. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that. So it was good timing for us here's an example of a situation that we want to be in a position to address should it happen here, which is why we want an equity assessment to occur. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Okay.
So with that, Dale, do you have any?
I'll provide a little bit of framing because this group, very rarely do we have, besides approving our minutes, very rarely do we vote on anything. Priti has instructions on how to conduct the conversation, making a motion to approve the letter, which similar to minutes, you sort of make a motion to approve, you get a second, and that opens discussion. During discussion, people then can propose amendments, and there's also some instructions in there about how to go about proposing and approving amendments in this group tonight. And I think the hopeful goal is that this group this evening decides to approve the letter or not to approve the letter. I will make a couple of notes or just high level meta thoughts on this process that I think are important. So if you are welcome to make as many edits on this as you'd like to, but know that the more revision that's done, the longer this process will be. The city council is poised to have a budget related retreat on the 27th, Saturday the 27th. And so they're receiving this letter prior to that date. Will probably be very advantageous for anything that you want to share. It also feels timely to make sure, just given the cadence of our meetings, these events were happening in, early-ish in the month of June, and we're coming to them a month later. Never a bad time to write a letter and send a letter, but just note, like if we were to push this off to our next meeting, that would be September. We're deep into budget season at that point. We can make amendments to the letter in the group today. However, if you're going to recommend pretty substantial changes, say there's a whole additional paragraph you want to add, something that would require me to take this and kind of come through with another draft, that would require another meeting. So we would have to wait until our next meeting, or you may try to find an additional special meeting to gather, though I'd warn against quorum challenges in August when potentially this group and other groups have been planning to be off in August. It might be hard to get everyone together. So those are just the meta level here. But that's sort of the instruction for this evening. So at some point hopefully we'll vote, and everyone will get a chance to vote in favor of or against wherever we land with the letter. And that is the hope for this evening. You had another thought, though.
Well, I know you spoke to Kelly and to Lorna, right? And I took the opportunity to speak to Kanal and share it with Monica. So I want to make sure our students here had time to share anything from their point.
Yeah, I thought the letter was really well. It seemed to touch on all the bases that I'd like to see covered. And I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
About I'm not sure if this is about the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. I'm not sure so well educated on the topic.
So you'd want that to be defined here, or just for clarity?
Yeah, that's for clarity. Yeah, if possible.
Sexual orientation is who you designate yourself as and who you might be attracted to. Gender identity goes a little bit deeper because there's, I would call that out as like transgender, not knowing your identity and want to change it.
Okay, I was not sure if like one could cover the other.
No,
No,
yeah, LGBTQI community probably wants to keep them separate.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the letter was really well written as well. The only thing I emailed back to Ray about was like maybe thinking, or like we could include like just a little bit on like why it's important for us to like address this matter. But I think like this that was pretty like like not broadly, but like it was stated throughout the whole letter and its significance as well. I looked over it. I don't think there's anything we need to add. Like I know it doesn't go in depth about the like specific thing, that event that happened, which I think is like good that we're keeping it like specific on what needs to happen. Because but yeah.
I had a question about, and this is actually going to help me understand the equity impact assessment, which was, does anyone have any information about the, I guess, the similar study that was done about climate? How that was set up, what the deliverables were, and
Yeah, so I will say, from the equity, the city's internal equity team is currently working on getting an idea of what the scope of the impact assessment should be. So my answer is like, no, not quite yet, but we will have more clarity about what the process will look like, what the action plan that comes out of it will look like. It will certainly, the goal is certainly to produce something like the Issaquah Climate Action Plan that outlines action steps the city needs to take, aligned to, I would imagine, community level indicators, but also isolates what can the city do specifically.
okay.
It is, again, they had, so that internal team had a preliminary conversation looking at about 10 examples of similar assessments from other jurisdictions, to get an idea of what that scope may want to look like. And of course, the plan is for the captains of that team to come back to this group in probably November, to get the board's input on what the assessment what the scope should be. That will go out to bid probably for a consultant to lead.
Okay, perfect. You answered my question. Understood. Thank you.
So I would add, maybe Dale, something you could pass on to that team is, I think it's important not just to be, like look at indicators and be quantitatively oriented, but also have a qualitative
Yes.
element to it. So which is what we noted here. And so that might be, I don't know if they're considering that as the scope, but I think it would be really, that I would say is a preview of what I would say if they came to us in November.
Yeah.
So I would just say right now.
I can definitely relay that. Absolutely.
Okay. Shawnee, I see your hand is raised. I don't know if it was raised from before or if you have a comment or question right now.
No, it was from before. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. So I guess what maybe I would propose is to see if someone would want to make a motion to approve. And as Dale said, after someone makes a motion and we have a second, we can discuss it and discuss if there's any concrete amendments or changes we would like to make, keeping in mind the more substantial the change, the less likely we're going to have an approved letter before we leave today. So with that, can I see if anyone would like to make a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter as written.
Nice second.
Second. Okay. So with that, do we have any proposals for amendments, edits, or changes, or any lingering questions that are coming up for folks? All right. I think, does that mean we can consider approved?
You can call a vote.
Should I call a vote or?
Yeah, so we can just call a vote, and it doesn't need to be one person at a time. We can say all in favor of approving, say aye, and then anyone not in favor, say nay. And then we'll go, that will be official.
And do we have quorum with regular members or?
We have quorum with our alternates are serving tonight. The
So-
only non-voting alternate here tonight will be Kunal because Veronica's here, but we do have quorum
Okay.
across the board. And so folks folks on the on the virtual team, you can also unmute and say your vote. And then if you would like to type it in the chat, you can also do that, just so we have that running record. But
Okay, well, I guess maybe all those in favor say aye.
I,
I,
And all those opposed say no.
the ayes have it.
Alright, the ayes have it. Okay. I guess with that, we can consider the letter approved.
Thank you, Ray, and
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dale.
Yeah.
Thank
Preeti
you.
and Dale, yeah.
All I did was put some words together. These two brought it to me as an issue that this group they felt this group needed to weigh on. And you had such a nice invitation from Council President Wolf
Yes.
at your last meeting to make sure that you reach out to the council and share your thoughts with them. And so I feel like this is exactly the purpose of this board. So excellent job.
And then Dale, can you share like next steps?
Yep, so next steps, I need to confirm with Tisha, but the letter will likely come from your chair and or vice chair. And it will be an email directly to the mayor, with me copied on it. So we'll go from there, and I'll include the Issaquah Equity Board. I will recirculate it to the board after one of the two of you sends it. So stay tuned for instructions tomorrow on exactly how to do that, and then expect a forward update to this group. And if we receive responses, but we'll make sure that they get disseminated back out to the whole group.
Right, and then is it going to council as well?
It will go to city council, and it will also go to Mayor Polly.
Okay,
If there's anyone else you'd like it to go to, we can do that. I know it's currently addressed to those two people, so we would just need to amend the letter. We need to go back. We just voted on the letter. We would need to amend who we want to send it to, but know that if it goes to those two groups, it will be shared more broadly.
okay. Any questions, comments before we move on to the next topic? All right, well, thank you all for that. Now we have the welcoming week table discussion with Dale.
Welcoming week, one of the city's most incredible events, honestly, from my perspective, is coming around again. And we've been invited to, and I've talked with your chair and vice chair about the potential of the equity board having a table at welcoming week. One of the things that this group has talked a lot about is being in intentional places where community is, to be able to learn and hear from them, rather than sort of sponsoring your own equity board listening session or anything like that. And welcoming week is a great opportunity. It's an event the city puts on that already really encourages folks from all the different communities across the city to attend. And when you're thinking about some of that qualitative input that might be helpful in guiding the scope of the equity impact assessment, welcoming week could be a great opportunity to gather some of that input. And so I wanted to open it up to this group to consider. I guess the primary question is, are you interested in having a table? The event is September 6th from, I think it's 5 to 8 p.m. right outside this building on this community center lawn. So primary question is yes, no on a table. And then from there, I would recommend the group consider a smaller subcommittee that would be interested in working with me closely over the course of the month of August to put together that table. I'll add one additional piece of information that could be helpful in this discussion. I know that the Issaquah History Museum has reached out and is interested in supporting in any way that they could support around sort of different narratives and perspectives. They sort of keep they have a archive of different voices of Issaquah past. And I said I would introduce that as a potential partner if you're interested. Don't feel pressured. This table should be what you want it to be. But yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't add that reason.
I have a question.
Yeah. Questions first.
I've been to it, and it seemed to me that it was, for the most part, made up of tables of organizations in the community, not of the city.
Yep.
And so that would be something for us to be aware of, because we will be viewed as the city. right? And the questions to us could be very broad.
Mhm.
So it's just something to, we can take advantage of that. There's ways to take advantage of that, but it can also be confusing for us as to what we're doing there.
I totally see where you're going.
Yeah.
Like there's no table for the Human Services Department or for the city council members just to have an open opportunity for residences to ask questions. So but let's just talk about what the purpose of this is. Are we trying to advertise or just to inform that the equity board exists? Because we don't want to overspeak things when we're sitting there manning the table for the questions that we might receive that we don't have answers to. But I thought, Kelly, it was just, does the city even know that an equity board exists? That
Yeah.
maybe share some of the history behind it, but don't go too far on any specific topic. If they have a question for us, maybe say, oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, I helped man the equity table. That's why I know.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it was kinda, because it was not.
At a
great.
previous event for this equity board?
Yes,
You manned a table?
a long time ago with Monica. A little
Ah,
bit,
Okay.
yeah, a little bit. It was, we saw each other at that one, but it was so loose by then I'd walk away because it was like, I wasn't clear what we were doing, to be honest. So I'm just gonna say, I will restate, we need to have a purpose,
Yeah.
which could be really anything, but clarity, that's all we need.
Yeah, I will be there the whole time.
Yeah.
So I can field some of those questions or to redirect them. Council won't have, I also can't confirm or deny what other tables exist at this current
Yeah.
stage. So this is really, is this group interested in having a table? In isolation, do you feel like you have clear enough of a purpose for having a table? And then I can follow up with Hannah and find out who else will have tables. Human Services doesn't usually have their own table because they're running the whole scene.
Yeah,
And city council members are present usually, but they're kind of often working the crowd a little bit. So you'd want to think about, what does your table look like that delineates that you're not the city, but you're a board within the city.
Mhm.
But great point. Great point.
Sorry.
It's 3 hours, and I actually am questionable with that date. So who would be comfortable manning the table? I guess I should ask this group. And who has the availability to do so?
Yeah, I'm out of town.
You
that
are.
week too.
I would love to be there to listen and learn more, but I've not been on this
listen.
board long enough.
Yeah, I hear you.
I would do it if we knew what we were doing. Yeah, so we have to meet and talk about it.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm available to
Yeah.
do it as well. So it sounds like there is enough initial interest. We might need to organize a working group
Yeah.
to plan with more intention, the purpose, our purpose there, and then kind of move it forward. Which do we want to see who would be interested in? I guess the folks who are going to be there, right? So maybe that's Kelly,
Be there.
Dale, Preeti, Canal.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, now is
I'd
So we
be
have
happy to support Shani.
Shawnee, okay, and I think that might be
That
our
limits,
number.
that's your number. You
That's our
cannot,
number.
you cannot have more than that.
Okay. So, we will do a
Not to
reach
say
out.
that others cannot be part of the table, but in terms of meeting, outside of meeting times, you are at right underneath quorum,
Yeah,
right there.
okay. And then I think to follow up on the next point, are we interested in the History Museum partnering in some way? I will say I'm really intrigued by the idea of them having, I don't know what it would be, like vignettes of different diverse
Yeah.
members of the community, like historically and their contributions. That would be kind of a lovely way to set it up.
That'd be a great tie-in.
Yeah, so I think we also have interest in
Great.
partnering with the History Museum.
Great. The next step, as is helpful, I will follow up with this group tomorrow. I'll connect you to Paul Winterstein, who's the current executive director of the museum, a former city council member here. And we can go from there, find a time to connect as a group. And I guess my invitation is, think about, what you feel like the purpose could be. So we likely won't meet this week, but we'll probably meet virtually at some point in the next couple of weeks. I'll send out a doodle to try to get some idea of availability, and that group will plan to come to the September meeting mere days before the table, and share that purpose and see if there's anyone else that would like to volunteer to join you at some point at the table.
That's great. Any last thoughts related to that topic?
I just,
So far.
you know, what a great opportunity can you record people at these events? Like, hey, resident, what is your definition of equity? Just, you know, and just get their
Yeah.
feedback. Can you have that opportunity, or just give them a piece of paper, and as you walk
Yeah.
around here, can you come back in 5 minutes and say, how do you define equity from your perspective?
Yeah, you
Your
have a
business-
big bulletin board, last year they had the big bulletin board that was the map, and you kind of put a pin where you're
Yeah,
from.
okay.
I could see something similar. It's like a big board that says, what does equity
Love that.
mean to you? And give people strips that they can post, or I think it was Kunal at one of our previous, meetings when Hasanthi came to talk about how do you get feedback on the park, and there was like the quick, you were like, oh yeah, I'm way more likely to fill out like the open response on a TikTok or an Instagram than I am like a big long survey. This group could also think about a way to use
Code or something.
the way to use some sort of social media to gather data, as well. So I think there's a lot of potential when you're thinking about input and how to hear voices. So there are some historical voices. What are the new voices of Issaquah? Like there's, like I said in my conversation with Preeti and Ray, I'm going very middle school science fair in my mind around the visuals, but like I think there's a lot of potential when you think about some of the information you've been eager to hear more about.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's exciting. It really is. Okay, I think we might be heading into wrapping up early today. Yeah, we're on to can I switch we can't do other business, right?
we cannot do any other business today, unfortunately.
Okay, can we do announcements if anyone has announcements?
We cannot.
Cannot, okay. And we need to scratch number 7 off. the
Yeah, we should have scratched.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so our closing thought, I haven't come up with a new one, but I also kind of like leaving with that, what's one word or feeling you're leaving the meeting with? And take a volunteer and we'll popcorn it around.
Preeti, so can you repeat the question? I didn't get it, like
Yes.
the closing thought.
What is one word or feeling or phrase that you will be leaving this meeting with?
I mean, I think I can start. Mine's pretty basic. I guess I'm just excited. The emergency alert system was really interesting. And I'm glad we're like sending out this letter and having a table. So today's been like exciting event. So. Oh, Toby.
I'm gonna mirror you. It was an exciting meeting. I think we're getting work and we're getting out there. Oh, yes. Is Christina still on? Yeah.
Christina, can you hear us? She may have needed to feed.
I will speak for a moment, please.
Yes, of course. Baby.
You want to call someone else?
Yeah. Who else is, not?
Sean, is that the-
Shawnee.
Shawnee.
Yes, Shawnee.
Solidarity.
Hmm. It's a great one.
You want to call on someone, Shawnee?
From here to see by Dale, I guess. I see her in there.
I'm in here. Yeah, energized. Leslie.
Gosh, all of this discussion, it feels incredibly empowering. Like we really have a direction and the ability to do some impactful work. So I'm excited too. So there's 2. So right.
Credit Jerry for this, but curious.
Hmm.
The work he's doing. It's so equity heavy. And I'd love to stay connected with him and see his work progresses.
Probably hopeful, on the letter and for the letter, and I'm excited to see what the assessment can do and how we can build on that.
Yeah, forward looking, I guess, like I feel like we're laying a lot of groundwork for some exciting work coming up, so it's exciting. Forward looking and exciting.
Awesome.
All right, okay, and I guess with that, we are at the end of our agenda.
Christina.
Oh, yes, sorry, Christina, yes.
That's fine, no problem. I want to say I'm feeling grateful for the great team we have, and I am so proud of you guys. You're doing a big job. Thank you so much for being there.
We're so glad you're back, Christina.
Yes.
And I guess Ted, as honorary member today, would you like a?
Wow.
Yeah.
She took the words Christina did. Grateful to all of you as individuals, but Equity Board is an institution now here in the city of Issaquah. This has come a long way. If you like this evening being a model, how far you've come, your action items today and the conversation. So I'm grateful.
Okay, well, thank you all for the engagement this evening and the lively and robust conversation and the exciting agenda topics. And so with that, I adjourn the July 17th Equity Board meeting at 7:37 p.m. And our next meeting, I believe, is September 4th. And so see you all then, and I hope you have some lovely time away in the interim. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.